Hello and welcome to The Final Frontiersman, a YouTube channel about all things Trek. I'm Bill, and today I wanted to do an updated buyer's guide for Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. The last guide I did was over 3 years ago, so a lot has changed in the game in that time, especially the release of 2nd edition. So I want to do a guide to help new players or prospective players know what's out there and what you might be interested in buying. So jumping into the small window, taking a look at my notes, let's see what happens. Alright, so the main question that all new players have, naturally for endgame, is what do I need? And for Star Trek Adventures, you need only one item, and that is a core rulebook. If you're going to dive directly into the game, you want to have everything you need, the core rulebook is all you need. 2nd edition is the newest edition. It's the edition going forward from this point. So I recommend, of course, picking up the 2nd edition rulebook so any new releases are going to be 100% fully compatible with it. However, some players might want to go into the older 1st edition, which is still viable. One thing to note is there is very minimal change between 1st and 2nd edition. Most of the rules carry over. They do take away one thing. 1st edition had 6-sided challenge dice that's used to determine damage or other effects. Those are removed in 2nd edition, so 2nd edition is purely D20. It's the 2D20 system, not the familiar D&D D20 system. Modiphius has 2D20, so it's slightly different, different mechanics. But aside from that removal of the challenge dice, there's only a few minor changes here and there between the two editions. So if you were to buy some 1st edition books and 2nd edition books, it's not too difficult to adapt one to the other. Doesn't take a lot of effort, doesn't take a lot of tweaking. So all of the 1st edition books will still be useful for 2nd edition, and you can also backtrack, reverse engineer the minimal changes from 2nd edition if you want to get that book but play primarily in 1st edition. So please keep that in mind. Also, one more very important thing I want to put out up front before I forget, because I am forgetful, is Modiphius has a great policy that wherever you buy their books, whether it's in the physical store, it's online, or directly from Modiphius themselves, they will provide you with a PDF copy of that book. All you have to do is contact them. If you don't buy from them directly, contact them, let them know. They'll ask you for whatever proof of purchase that they may need. I can't say what that would be. And they will get you a PDF copy of whatever physical books you own, even if you bought them secondhand. It's a great policy. It's a good way to have a backup, have something digital, especially if you're running games online. It's very useful. So please keep that in mind. No matter where you buy your books from, if you get a physical book, Modiphius, at least at this point, they've been for years, they will provide you with a PDF copy of that book. So going into the core books, what you need. So 2nd edition, core rulebook. The reason why I recommend it is it takes a lot of what Modiphius had learned over the years of doing Star Trek Adventures 1st edition. Was like 6-7 years, and then they released 2nd edition. It took a lot of the things they learned and they added into supplements as the years went on. It streamlined it and it put it inside the core rulebook, so you have all the cool ideas that they developed over time right there from the very beginning. So the 2nd edition core rulebook compared to the 1st edition, it's setting neutral, it's timeline neutral. The 1st edition focused on a TNG era, Voyager-ish era timeline. Even though you can play in any timeline setting, they set the game in that era, and as the books came out, it advanced the years and what's happening in the galaxy. It wasn't really necessary, so the 2nd edition keeps it neutral. The theme, visually at least for 2nd edition, is Strange New Worlds. However, that's just the visual theme. It is completely setting and timeline neutral. It's easy to run a game in any series, any timeline, or any new era that has yet to be seen using just a 2nd edition book. The other thing is they added a lot of new species and different governments, different organizations, different groups that you can play as right from the very beginning. Of course, Star Trek is primarily Federation and Starfleet based, but Core Rulebook allows you to play as Klingons, and play as Cardassians, play as Orions, play as Romulans, play as even civilians, non-aligned people with any government, with any organization. You can play as anything straight from the very beginning with the Core Rulebook. So this is really the most complete way to jump in from the very beginning into Star Trek Adventures. Star Trek Adventures, you only need this one book for players, for GMs alike. That's all you need. Everything else is icing on the cake. So, Core Rulebook, 2nd edition. There are some collector's covers. They have the 3 different departments, again, in Strange New World styles, collector edition covers. They might be a little bit hard to find now. 1st edition also has a collector's edition cover with the Enterprise D close-up on it. That is pretty hard to find right now, very hard to find. There's also a digest-sized edition for 1st edition if you want like a travel version to take with you. And there's even a Klingon Empire Core Rulebook for the 1st edition if you want to just dive straight in to playing an all-Klingon campaign. That also has a collector's edition cover on it too, which is beautiful. But again, you could play Federation even if you buy the Klingon Core Rulebook. But the Klingon Core Rulebook is just chock full of Klingon information. It is designed from a Klingon perspective, whereas the 1st edition Core Rulebook was a Starfleet perspective. Aside from that, just one little thing. You know what? This is not a review, but I am giving a yellow alert just to bring to your attention. There is also a solo version of Star Trek Adventures. It's not really Star Trek Adventures, but it's based on the rules. It's stemmed off of Star Trek Adventures. It is called Captain's Log. This is, as I said, the solo version of playing Star Trek Adventures. It's not 100% Star Trek Adventures, but it is birthed from Star Trek Adventures. It is more from the way people describe it, because I'm not really an expert on solo role-playing. It is described by others as more of a storytelling journaling game, where you are creating the story of your character. It's called Captain's Log, but that doesn't mean you're forced to play a captain. You could play just like any role-playing game, any character you want, any species you want. It is based on a lot of random charts and different matrices that you roll against, but it does require your input, your interpretation, your imagination to keep the story going along. It's not going to tell you this many enemies are popping out here, this is doing that. It's going to give you prompts that you flesh out and you tell the way that you want using the 2d20 system, modified version of the 2d20 system. It is also self-contained. There are no supplements for it. There are no additional source books for it. The Captain's Logbook is all you need if you want to run a solo game. But you can also use Captain's Log to run multiplayer games. As usual, you could use it to run guided play where you are leading the other players through, or you could even use as a group to play with the game, giving you the prompts, and you're rolling again on those tables, but you're all playing as characters. Nobody's a GM. All those options are available in Captain's Log if that is more your style. So if you want a core rulebook, Captain's Log for solo play or very lightly guided narrative gameplay for 1+ players. First edition, if you want to go into a system that has a little more crunch because of those 6-sided challenge dice that uses a little more randomness, so you don't know exactly what's going to happen when you roll for damage, when you roll for that. Or second edition, the more streamlined version that is a lot more self-contained and takes most of the great ideas that came up over the years and condenses them all into one book in an easy to present style. So stand down, yellow alert. Core rulebook, that is all you need. Going back with second edition, let's say you're not sure if you want to just buy a core rulebook, you're not sure if this is going to be for you. Starter set. Second edition has a great starter set. easy way to jump into the game and experience it firsthand. It comes with a rules booklet, a campaign book. The campaign book, I must say, is amazing because it gradually introduces the rules to you as you're playing through it as a new player, as a new GM. So if you're not really sure how to run the 2d20 system, this is going to introduce it to you in very easy to digest chunks. Great way. And the story is very Trek. It is very compelling. It's very good. It has character sheets. It has tokens. It has rules reference sheets, which are very good. But also, the second edition box comes with a set of 5 D20s in a unique color. I believe this is currently the only way to get D20 dice for second edition purely. Any D20 is going to work, and you could still buy old first edition D20 sets, but this is the only way, as far as I know, to get a full set of 5 D20 dice for Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition. It's a great starter set. It's a great way, and you can even use it to keep going on and on and on past the campaign in there because it's a role-playing game. But if you want the full set of rules, if you think the game's for you, the starter set convinced you, that's where you go get the core rulebook. You're good to go. First edition also had a starter set as well, very similar in style. The dice that come with it, I don't know if it comes with a full set of 5 D20s. It's been a while since I looked at that set, but it does also have challenge dice in there as well. But whichever version you want to get, first or second edition, there is a starter set for you to let you try it out. Also, the campaign from the starter set is available as a separate PDF. So if you just want to play that campaign, you're able to obtain that as well. Check the Modiphius site. Also, let me do that since I'm calling out alerts anyhow. Why not? Let's make this a red alert. This is important. Red alert. Everything that I am talking about here, I am going to link to the Modiphius store, so hopefully it's easy for you to find down there on the US and the UK rest of the world store. I'm going to link to that. Plus, almost everything that I'm going to mention in this video, I have done an individual review for that product on this channel, almost all of it. So I will also link to all those individual reviews down below. So if I'm talking about a product and you want to know more about it and you're not sick of my voice by that point, just scroll down to the description and find the link. You could go directly to that review. All right, stand down, red alert. There we go. Oh, there's also quick start guides, free quick starts you could download. So those are another way to jump in, get a little bit of a taste of the game, and get a little campaign. Please see the website, Modiphius website below if you want the quick starts. Okay, game toolkit. Star Trek Adventures provides a game toolkit, which comes with a GM screen. Second edition has a very low top GM screen. It's not the high ones. First edition's a high one. So it's a GM screen, which of course has a lot of the rules references on the back. Second edition is 4-panel. It comes with a very beautiful double-sided poster with art on one side and a map of the Strange New Worlds era galaxy beta and gamma quadrants on the other side. Again, it has a Strange New Worlds visual theme, but the game itself is setting neutral, so you can play in any setting, any timeline you want. I keep saying that, but I don't want you to forget. Double-sided reference sheets. Star Set also comes with reference sheets, but these are more complete. These have a lot more expanded rules about not just how to play each of the roles that you might have, but also like a combat reference sheet, turn flow reference sheets. There's lots of very good charts and flow charts on these reference sheets, as well as in the second edition book, that make it easy to follow different game concepts. There's a 40-page booklet with a lot more options. It has new starships. I'm a huge starship guy. GM resources. The GM resources has a lot of new ideas on how to use extended tasks. I know those were very difficult concepts in first edition. They're streamlined more in second edition, but also give you new ways of using extended tasks, new ways of using I was going to say stress, but threat and momentum, those kind of ideas. It's a really useful thing. There is also a GM toolkit for first edition as well that has pretty much the same kind of things. It has reference sheets, it has the booklet, it has the GM screen, the tall GM screen, but of course the content is going to vary, the content is going to be a bit different, and I think second edition once again shows what Modiphius had learned over the years of producing Star Trek Adventures goods to give you a very well laid out GM screen with pretty much, I think there was only one thing I noticed on there that I thought like, oh, I wish they had that on there. A lot of times GM screens, as much as I love them, they do let me down where I think, why'd they put this and not this? Why'd they put this and not this? I would say for this Star Trek Adventures second edition GM screen in the toolkit, I'm 95% or higher satisfied with the content they put on the back of this screen. I thought it was great. Highly recommend it, especially for those of you who like GM screens. Review is also down below, probably somewhere. So those are kind of the core elements for starting your game. Next, let's take a look at some of the supplements that have come out for second edition. So going into the supplements, they have the exploration guide, which is pretty dang cool. It's a toolbox basically for creating any kind of location you want to host your games in, from generating entire sectors of space, how many stars are in there, how many systems are in there, into each system, what kind of stars are in the system, how many planets, what other phenomena is in there, all the way down to individual biomes on planets, including adventure hooks and dilemmas and problems and all sorts of things that could happen randomly and occur in these biomes, in these areas. It is an amazing book. If you're the kind of GM who wants to design your own systems, your own areas of space down to the most minute details, this is for you. If you're a GM that doesn't care about that level of minutia, but you just want some adventures and ideas and some creative thoughts on how I don't even know, there's like a dozen different swamp types. That's how deep this game goes. So it's not like this is a swamp plant, this is a swamp plant, this is a cave, this is a cave. It gives you differences to make your individual adventures completely unique. Any planet you want, even planets that you already know. They're going to Andoria, it's a cold place. All right, go to this book, look in the cold biome section, get some ideas for different hooks, adventures, or dilemmas that will pop up to the characters when they are in this situation. Amazing resource that will support any kind of gameplay in space and on planet. You can't go wrong with that. Love the exploration guide. So much work, so much science. If you love science, that is in there. Next is the technical manual. We go from space, we go from location into the equipment. This is basically a guidebook. This is a reference book for the different technology all throughout Star Trek, all throughout the history of Star Trek timeline. Every book, exploration guide, this one, there's always new character options, so there's always something for everyone in all of these books. Technical manual has a lot of character options based on technology that makes sense, so things that you might want to get into for engineers or anyone that has a tech-based background, this will give you a lot of that. There's also new options for starships, including the first new weapon type aside from range weapons and energy weapons and torpedo weapons. This adds mines, space mines, that we see throughout Star Trek in various series, such as Deep Space Nine. This introduces it to Star Trek Adventures. Very, very cool concept. So it covers not only the technology of Starfleet, but also from the different factions, different species, and how they differ from Federation technology. There's also a very cool thing because Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition has lots of random tables, lots of charts. There are random tables for complications that could pop up in these technologies. But technical manual, when you want to know all about the technology, how to use it, and how it could go wrong and screw with you and your players, oh, it's a great resource. So, technical manual. And the latest resource, as of the posting of this video, the latest supplement to come out for 2nd edition is the 23rd Century Campaign Guide. And this is kind of unique. This is kind of new to Star Trek Adventures on its own. This is the first time they're taking a time setting and creating an entire supplement for this time saying. This is 23rd century, so the year 2200 all the way up to 2299. This covers everything from the area post-Enterprise, through Discovery, through Strange New Worlds, the original series, the animated series, the original series films, all the way through the very beginning of Star Trek Generations. This covers all of those. It breaks the century down into 4 distinct eras, and it gives you advice on how those eras play and feel differently from one another. So if you want to set a game in 2256, you could flip to those sections and it'll tell you how to run it as a GM. And literally, I mean that. The advice, the GM advice I see in this book, I believe it was written by Al Spader. This is some of the best GM advice I've seen in a book for giving you ideas and inspiration for running games. And they are so different. Running a game in this era compared to this one, compared to this one. The advice is so tailored to fit those eras. This could have been an easy write-off for a lot of people, but the detail put into this book is beautiful. And it is, I wouldn't say crucial, but it is, I would say, very, very indispensable if you want to run a game, if you want to play in a game set in the 23rd century. It's the perfect handbook for creating a series tailored to that era, to that century. So those are the 3 supplements, the 3 big supplements that have been released so far for 2nd edition. They are complete in their own, and the fact that they are so broad while being detailed means that you could take this and apply it to any game you're running. That's why not only 2nd edition is the edition going forward, but that's why this is top loaded in this video of 2nd edition, because one supplement from 2nd edition could cover maybe 5 supplements from 1st edition. It takes all the advice and it just squeezes it into one book, so you don't have to go and flip from book to book to book to get ideas. And it stays general enough that you could apply to anything, use it for anywhere, any setting, any location. It's amazing. So if you want to stay as minimalist as possible, one core book, I recommend 2nd edition, but you have to choose the flavor that's best for you. And then if you want something to give you ideas about locations, gameplay, playing in different sectors, Exploration Guide. If you need something about technology and using that and how to enhance your games with equipment, Technical Manual. If you want an individual guide on running in a specific setting, so far they only have 23rd century, you got that source book right there. I'm assuming they're going to be following this up with other source books from other centuries or eras, and I'm expecting them to have the same level of content that you find in this book. 2nd edition keeps it streamlined, keeps it where it's at. So that's my major recommendation. But now let's take a look. Let's go back a bit deeper. So if you're interested in getting 1st edition books, again, I will reiterate, they are all compatible. Listen to me. I'm talking like Chekhov now. They're all compatible with 2nd edition. With the stats alone, very minor conversion is needed. But the general information that you are getting from all the 1st edition books, 100% compatible, usable, and I would even say recommended for 2nd edition. I have not found a single book in Star Trek Adventures that I do not like. So let's take a look. We already talked about the core books. We talked about the star set. We talked about the GM kit from second edition or from first edition. So let's go on to some of the supplements. If you want to focus on settings, we're just talking about the 23rd Century Sourcebook, the campaign guide. If you want to focus on settings, first edition has a number of books that focus on settings and campaigns. They have the Discovery book, 2256 to 2258. This gives you player options. This gives you ideas set during the years of the Klingon War. Now, I mentioned in my review, and I recommend you check out the review, particularly if you are not a fan of Discovery. This is set during the Klingon War of Discovery, but this is not Star Trek Discovery. I know it's a contentious show. I know a lot of people have a love it or hate it attitude towards Discovery. This is not Discovery. This is a very good resource book about this era of Federation history. This book, to be perfectly honest, reading this book convinced me to go back and rewatch Discovery. Rewatch it. Not even rewatch. Convinced me to watch Discovery because I gave it up. The information here was so good. The way the writers presented it, it grabbed my attention and I wanted to see more so I could flesh out my own ideas. And I went back and watched Discovery and I had a bit more appreciation to it after reading this book. But it gives you a lot of stuff and I would recommend it as a resource for anything pre-TOS currently. It gives you a lot of Federation starships and space frames pre-TOS, as well as Klingon. And the information about the Klingons in this time period is probably my favorite part of this Discovery 2256 to 2258 campaign book. Another campaign book, another guidebook, setting book in this time is one of the most unique books in the Star Trek Adventures line. I believe it was the final release of first edition. This is the Federation Klingon War tactical campaign. This is very different because it creates a completely new way to play a Star Trek Adventures game, and you can still use this in second edition. It creates a tactical overlay of running a war, and a war happening across the galaxy, hotspots breaking out, and just the back and forth flow of attrition of winning one battle but maybe losing the war overall, and moving resources, sending ships. So you could play almost a strategic tactical war game on top of your role-playing game. It also has a lot of information, again, about the war, but this whole tactical idea, this tactical game, could be tweaked and adjusted and modified to fit any war you want. It's designed for the Federation Klingon War, but you could adapt it to the Dominion War, you could adapt it to the Earth Romulan War a century earlier, anything you want. It is so unique and gives you a very exciting way of playing war campaigns, as well as introducing concepts such as trauma and scars, which has recently been added into Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition with the 23rd Century campaign, because that also covers the war era here. So that's another very, very, very cool resource for the or as a setting for first edition. So you might want to use that. These two books, along with the 23rd Century campaign guide in second edition, that will give you a more complete, detailed view of a lot surrounding the war that takes place during the 23rd century. There's also the Lower Decks campaign guide. Lower Decks campaign guide, and again, just like Discovery, it's focused on the concepts in the series Lower Decks, but it's not necessarily about Lower Decks, the series. So this tells you not only about this time period, post Voyager, post TNG, all that. It tells you what does it feel like to play as a Lower Decks character. So maybe you don't want to be a commanding officer. Maybe you don't want to be a bridge officer. You want to play as a Lower Decks. What kind of jobs do they have? What do they do all day? Why is it different? How does it feel different from playing as a bridge officer? So it has that. But one of the things this book also does greater than that it almost as a reference book itself, the kind of tropes and common elements you see throughout Star Trek, all the different series of Star Trek, and it gives you advice on how to use these tropes, how to incorporate them into your game to make your game feel more like the Star Trek you see on TV, you see on the screen. So these books are a great supplement for something like the 23rd Century Guide if you want to mix second and first edition together. But what if you want to mix locations? We have the Exploration Guide in second edition, which covers anything you want. You could create location-wise, but first edition has you covered a little more focused on individual quadrants of Star Trek, so of the galaxy in Star Trek. So we have the 4 quadrant books, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. There is one source book for each of them, and they focus on the species, the people, the planets, and events that occur in each of those 4 quadrants. The Gamma Quadrant book is pretty much the Deep Space Nine Dominion War source book, even though it doesn't really go towards the complete end of the book. It does mention it. Again, I mentioned before, first edition did have a timeline that it was flowing through. Each book was advancing the timeline, but again, your stories could be set anywhere, anytime, so it didn't really make sense. And I think that's why they changed it for second edition. Definitely didn't make that much sense to me, even though it was kind of fun to see the story unfold. We already pretty much knew it if we watched Star Trek. Gamma Quadrant is kind of the Deep Space Nine book, and likewise, Delta Quadrant is the Voyager source book, because all our knowledge of Delta Quadrant basically at that point came from Voyager. So it's Voyager plus the Borg. So if you want good detailed information on the Borg, Delta Quadrant source book is where it's at. Now you could get these books to supplement the exploration guide from second edition. Take these books from the quadrant that you want to run your game in, read about it, read about the plans, read about the location, then use your exploration guide to flesh it out with more detail, adventure hooks, and anything you need to make it a complete package. They go very well together. So it's a perfect resource if you want information for a specific quadrant or specific quadrants. Those are the quadrant books, 4 of them. Now there's also the division books. So if you want information about the different roles in Star Trek Adventures, you have the Command, Operations, and Science Division books. The books also have a lot of information about starships and the different Starfleet branches and careers associated with these 3 different divisions. These books are mainly for the players, but there's also a lot of advice for GMs of running games focused on these characters or adding elements from these divisions into your plots, into your stories. Now, I will say this. Let me give this a yellow alert. Don't know why I'm doing alerts, but why not? Yellow alerts. These are some of the earliest books for Star Trek Adventures. I believe these might even be the first source books released for Star Trek Adventures first edition. So they do show their age compared to the new stuff. They are probably not as complete as you would expect when you're coming from second edition going back to it. And you could still see Modiphius was filling out what directions they want to take Star Trek Adventures in. So there's some things in there. For example, I'll mention in the Operations book, it includes Star Trek Adventures had a miniature skirmish game associated with it called Red Alert when it first came out. So it includes the rules for Red Alert in it. There was a whole line of miniatures because they were possibly going in that direction as well. That was later dropped, but that's in there. So you might find some information in this book to be in these 3 division books to be less useful than what comes later, because Modiphius was finding its way with the line. It learned over the years, and that's why second edition books are as good as they are, because these were their, I don't want to say trial and error, but these were their way of testing the waters of what the fans wanted and what they wanted to do with the series. So while I do recommend these books to give you information and give players information on how to play, not only how to play, in these divisions, but what else is in the division that might not be obvious to you from the start, and other career choices in these divisions that might not be obvious to you just by what you see on the screen. I do recommend it for that, but also be aware that these early books may have additional fluff or extraneous things that was later dropped, or maybe is not as useful now with what we now have after almost a decade of Star Trek Adventures. So please keep that in mind. Still recommend them, but there is that asterisk on it. Okay, stand down, yellow alert. Okay, and there's also some supplements that you can use for a book. The biggest one I can recommend, no matter what, is the Utopia Planitia book. This is the Starship Guide. This one also has some collector's covers too. It has 3 different covers, a nice TOS one, a nice TNG one, and then your standard cover. But this is basically a guide to Federation Starship. It updates the stats and how to do refits for starships that Modiphius had adapted as the years went on with first edition. So these are slightly more updated versions of the starships. The starships again get updated on their stats and how their stats are figured out in second edition. But honestly, if you're playing first edition, if you use the Utopia Planitia stats, or if you use the stats that you find in the other books wherever the starship appears, there's slight differences. It's not going to make a big difference. Utopia Planitia gives you a more robust way of designing starships, of refitting your starships, and just using starships. There are so many different ships in the book. The first time a lot of the ships appeared in Star Trek Adventures was right here in Utopia Planitia. If you're a starship lover, this is for you, and it's a great way to get a book. Take it. If that starship is not already in second edition and that's what you're playing, just follow the guides that you see in second edition, how they convert it over from first edition. You can easily port your beloved starship into second edition using these. It is such a beautiful book. I love it. I love this book so much. Again, the review's down below. Please check the link if you want to know more about it. But there are some other resources, some other supplements I want to mention very quickly. There are first the character PDFs that are available. And it takes characters from the different series, the original series. On Discovery, it breaks it down to seasons because the characters change in season. I believe Picard also breaks down in seasons. TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, even iconic villains with Q, Locutus, all those characters, they have individual PDF character packs if you want to introduce those characters into Star Trek Adventures. And recently, Modiphius has been releasing second edition updates for these PDFs. So eventually, I believe all of them you'll be able to have fully statted out in second edition style, which again isn't that much of a difference, and you could probably do it yourself if you want to. There's also the animated series supplement. That this is not a full source book, printed source book, but you could get a PDF supplement book for the years post TOS, where you have all the things that happened in the animated series, as well as a supplement for the IDW year 5 of TOS, the comic line for the 5th year of the Enterprise's first 5-year mission under Kirk. There is a supplement for that as well, and that's all in PDF form. That's all on the Modiphius site and probably DriveThruRPG. Please check wherever you get your game PDFs. Those are the supplements for first edition, and they could be used as a supplement for pretty much anything that you want. There's ideas in there, there's concepts, there's equipment, there's cool things in there. There's also adventures and campaigns. There's 3 big ones I have to talk about. First edition had 2 adventure compilations. There was These Are the Voyages was volume 1, and Strange New Worlds was volume 2. These are the mission compendiums volumes 1 and 2. There's 8 or 9 pre-made adventures in there. You can adapt them into second edition if you're playing second edition, or just use it as it is for first edition. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like creating your own stories, or you like to use a pre-made adventure or use it as a jumping off point to adapt in your own way, there's a ton of them in here for you. Not only that, but this is a big one. The Shackleton Expanse campaign. I was debating whether to put this in a setting section or as a campaign section, but it is an adventure campaign. This is a massive, this is the original setting designed for Star Trek Adventures. This is a place called the Shackleton Expanse in the Beta Quadrant. Brand new area of space to explore, a very interesting area of space, a very tumultuous area of space. So if you want to stay close to the Federation, but still have your own unique original setting that is free to populate and design the way you want, Shackleton Expanse campaign has that. It is a 10-part campaign. It started out as a free-to-play living campaign that you could download online, but they developed it into this massive 10-part campaign in this book that has also, let me see how many I wrote down on here, 10, I believe, 10 mission briefs set in the 23rd century, and 36, if that number is correct, mission briefs set in the 24th century, because the campaign does spread over the years, but it's adaptable. If you only want to be in one section in one period of time, you can do it. You could run an entire Star Trek Adventures series using this book alone, with hundreds of episodes, the way you could adapt all the stuff in here. This is your own complete Star Trek series. This is kind of what Star Trek Adventures was designed for when it first came out. That's why it was the living campaign. So if you want to tell your own original story, but still have that structured guideline of something unique and original, having a pre-made campaign, pre-made adventures, the Shackleton Expanse campaign is good. Plus, it introduces new species never before seen in Star Trek, new concepts never before seen, and a new enemy never before seen. It's an amazing book for GMs and players alike. Really will flesh out in a unique way that no other book can. Those are the adventures, those are the campaigns. Now, there's also some reference material that you could use, and I highly recommend these reference guides. There's the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide. These two books, the first half of the book, third of the books, I'm not sure, of the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide, they are pretty much identical with the same background information, but then the rest of the book goes on a player focus or a GM focus approach. These are two of the best reference books I've ever read for any role-playing game. And the beginning of it talks about Star Trek concepts, history, people, technology, terminology. So if you are not familiar with Star Trek, if you're not familiar with the universe, or you want a refresher's course, either of these books will do that for you. But that's not the best part. The information it gives for players, the information it gives for GMs in the respective books, it's some of the best and most well put pieces of advice that I've ever seen in anything for a role-playing game. And I highly recommend it, even if you don't want to play Star Trek Adventures, but you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, you want to play Pathfinder, you want to play Cyberpunk. This advice applies to all gamers everywhere, no matter which side of the table you're sitting on. It's like sitting down with some good RPG friends who have been playing for decades and just listening to them share their thoughts of gaming and advice. And it is so enlightening. I love these two books. I love them from beginning. If you want to know exactly why in minute detail, please check out the reviews down below. Last few things to talk about here. There were accessories that are now not really being made. Same with first edition books. Like, you might not be able to find a lot of these in print. PDFs are out there, but the books aren't being printed. They're not being made anymore as far as I know. So you might not be able to get the physical copies, but PDFs are still available. However, accessories, which again might be really hard to find. I mentioned before there was a miniature skirmish game, so they did make miniatures when Star Trek Adventures first started. They're resin miniatures. They have like the TNG bridge crew, Borg, the villains, Romulans. You could get those miniatures, put them together, paint them, use them for your adventures if you need it. But again, Star Trek Adventures is kind of a theater of the mind experience, so they are not necessary at all. There were also Starship tiles, also available in PDF form. You can find on Modiphius site. So if you want location tiles to play your game, especially if you're using miniatures, if you want to do it that style, again, not necessary, but it might be a good accessory to use in your game. Or if you want to play that defunct Red Alert miniatures skirmish game that they have, tiles are going to be useful for that. There's also the dice sets, which I think currently they're not making again. Most of them were first edition. And there was a first edition and a later first edition one where it changes the number of d20s and d6s that you get in there. There's also the Klingon version. I believe it's 2 d20s and then 6 or 4 or 6 d6s. There was also the Kirk, Captain Kirk green tunic dice. They also had that release. Those later ones might be easier to find than the original 3 division color ones. But those are out there. I don't know if they're still making those. Just be aware. The fact that if you're playing first edition and you need those challenge dice but you can't get them, very easy way to convert regular 6-sided dice into the challenge dice, and that information's in the core rulebook. So don't fret if you can't find these specific Star Trek Adventures dice. They are not that necessary for it. D20s, any D20 will work for first or second edition Star Trek Adventures. But last, absolute last, that I want to mention that I forgot. I did mention the Star set, but there are also 2 collector sets I really need to point out. First, might as well, it's not a review, but I've been doing it. Red Alert, the Tricorder set. They came out with the Rules Digest, a wearable tricorder set. It looks like a TOS tricorder with the shoulder strap. Tricorder opens up. It holds the digest size rulebook in it, as well as character sheets, the pre-made character sheets, the ship sheets, reference sheets. It also comes with dice. This is where you could get a set of the set with the Captain Kirk green tunic dice, with the challenge dice in there. It has tokens in it. It's basically a travel set of Star Trek Adventures First Edition. If you're running a TOS 23rd century game, now that you have the 23rd century source book out there, this is a great way to carry your stuff with you. You're going to game night in style. It is so cool. I love the Tricorder set. It's on the shelf. Love that there. And might as well, Black Alert. When Star Trek Adventures released, it came out in style with the Borg Cube collector set. Look at the picture. Look at the picture. This is a massive cube. It is like this big. It opens up. You can remove the front cover of the Borg Cube, and that front panel that you pull out turns into a 3-panel GM screen. But inside the cube, you have, if you're able to get your hands on one of these original cubes, which are numbered and limited and expensive, it has the collector's edition core rulebook inside. Comes with 1 set of each division dice, so a box of the command, operations, and science division dice. It comes with a set of the miniatures, plus a tray, foam tray to store the miniatures in one of the drawers in there. It comes with acrylic tokens for threat and momentum, reference sheets, poster. What else is in there? Yeah, the poster of the Alpha Beta quadrants and beautiful art poster on the back. What else is in there? I don't even remember all the things that are in there. I think that's the main thing. But it also has space to store your source books that you buy for it in the big open space underneath the drawers. So you have a gorgeous way of storing and displaying your Star Trek Adventures collection there. Now there's far too many books to keep inside there, but at the time, plus it also provides you with PDFs of the of most of the first edition, if not all of the first edition books. I believe most of the first edition books, it gives you the PDFs of them as well if you're able to get these collector's edition. There was also a second, somewhat cheaper version of the Board Cube set that came out maybe a year or so afterwards, which doesn't include the miniatures, and I believe that might be all that it didn't have. So it didn't have everything. Definitely didn't have the miniatures with it there, so it made it a bit cheaper to get. But this is an amazing and totally unnecessary thing for the game. But if you wanted to kick off your Star Trek Adventures collection in style, Board Cube. Plus it has the now completely out of print collector's edition core rulebook from first edition in it. Yeah, what can I say? Oh, got a double black alert there. What happened? So that's it. All right, that's, I hope, a complete guide or a complete list of the products that are currently available here at the end of 2025 for Star Trek Adventures. So if you are interested in getting Star Trek Adventures, I hope this was useful for you. Again, I will say that the reviews for all of the products that I did review are down below. So if you heard anything that you're interested in, but you want to know a bit more, you could check that out down below or search elsewhere. There's plenty of information by this point by many people. Find that. Also, follow the links to Modiphius' site if you want to check out the PDFs. Oh, that's another thing I could mention. In addition to all this, there are a lot of individual missions and mission briefs in PDF form that you could buy or free download from Modiphius' site, and also probably DriveThruRPG. So there's a lot of adventures out there. So check out those sites, take a look. If you get into Star Trek Adventures, let me know. I want to know how you like it, how you feel about it. Do you play first edition? Do you play second? Do you play Captain's Log, the solo version? What do you do? What do you like about what are your favorite books? Anything that you could comment that might give help to anyone coming to this video and reading through the comments. They want to play, they want to get into the game. Any thoughts you have that I didn't say, please post them down below. Let's help our fellow players or help our fellow future players get into this game and have the best time with it like we do. So I hope that was useful. As always, stay safe out there, my friends. Live long and prosper. Peace and long life. I'll see you next time.